Chapter 230. Of course, we must go in. Either? Startled by Either's unexpected proposal, Stryber, who had thought that Either came to help calm the members, could not hide his surprise as he stuttered from a distance. What is he trying to do? Either looked back at the members after flashing a reassuring smile in Stryber's direction. Who said they left something inside? It's me. From behind the gathered crowd, a cavalry member who had been looking somber raised her hand and stepped forward. Fianne Morphel. She could shoot arrows of wind that are invisible to the naked eye. Although she could only shoot about 5 arrows per day, the invisible attack was a valuable ability with high growth potential. Either glanced at the bow she was carrying on her back and nodded. All right, can you tell me exactly what you left inside? It's a leather pouch with a bow pattern. Fianne stared at her bare hands and replied in a gloomy tone. I thought I had taken it after training. I didn't realize I dropped it because I was in a rush to leave. When did you realize it was missing? I noticed it as soon as I left the training ground and started walking. Upon realizing her pouch was missing, Fianne returned to the training ground but was blocked by the Imperial Knights who were already inside. Her companions, who had followed her out of concern, protested, but all they received were cold disdain and scoffs. I feel so sorry and ashamed in front of everyone else. I should have checked my pouch more thoroughly. It's all my fault. Don't say that, Fianne. Another member standing next to Fianne raised his voice in fury. It's not a simple bow-patterned pouch. You're worried that the damned knights will trample on the bow-patterned pouch that your deceased mother made. What's wrong with that? We are not here because we want to be. You don't have anything to apologize for. At his words, everyone nodded their heads in agreement. Either surreptitiously glanced at Stryber, who by now looked displeased. He had heard about the lost item, but he didn't seem to know about the sentimental value. Stryber, after saying his name with the meaning of you should go in after hearing all this, Stryber met his gaze with a complicated look in his eyes. All right, if that's the case, we should go in and retrieve it. But do you have any good ideas? What kind of plan could there possibly be? Either quietly answered as he moved. Even though the training ground usage time is divided, that only applies to training activities. They can't prevent simple visits. We just need to go in and find it. Okay. I don't know whether I should say it's good because it's simple or it's quite clear. Looking at Either with a peculiar gaze, Stryber looked up at the sky once, bowed his head towards the ground, and let out a long sigh again. I'm asking just in case. What if they attack us? What do you mean, what if? Either, who was walking through the parted cavalry members, stopped right in front of the entrance to the training ground and turned around. Stryber, surely you're not worried that we might lose to them? The word of provocation, accompanied by a smirk, had quietened the crowd. A moment later, Stryber broke the silence with a hollow laugh. There is no way that could be. Yes, I think so too. No problem then. Either left his words unspoken, but everyone understood his intention. The members, finally permitted to enter, began to clatter in deep excitement. Good, of course, it has to be like this. We can go in now, right? We will show them what we are made of. Wait, just a moment. Fianne, who still wore a sorry expression, raised her voice lastly, standing beside the members who were preparing to enter with clenched fists and high spirits. But the commander is not here. What if he finds out about this later? Either glanced back at her and responded briefly. It's okay, that's the least of our worries. What? He was willing to bet that Cashier, who learned of this event belatedly, would regret not having been part of such an intriguing incident. All right, let's go in. Whoever finds the leather pouch that Peony lost, immediately raise your hand and shout out loud. Don't delay the search. Stryber loudly gave the final notice to the members. Once the decision was made, his attitude became carefree, as if a weight had been lifted off his chest. Find either me or Yudhir immediately if you think it's dangerous. Well, there shouldn't be anyone like that here, though. Of course, the members responded in unison. They entered the training ground eagerly, ready to blow off all the frustration they had accumulated so far. The area was spacious enough for dozens of people to train scattered about, so it seemed that finding a small pouch would take some time. What are you doing? Then a knight, swinging his sword nearby, came straight forward and started yelling. I kept telling you not to enter, yet you intrude. Leave immediately. If you do not retreat within 3 seconds, I will attack you for ignoring the warning. Let's scatter and start looking. Stryber gestured dismissively, ignoring the knight's threats. The members scattered smoothly, as if they had been waiting for this. The knight, who had been brandishing his sword dramatically, was taken aback, his eyes wide open in surprise. Can't you hear me? I said, leave right now. Why should we? Yudhir opened his mouth in place of Stryber. We are not intending to stay here forever. We will leave as soon as we find the item we lost. I don't understand why you are threatening us for that. Threatening? How dare this insolent peasant slander me? Why did these guys always bring up peasants when they ran out of arguments? It's as tedious as it was in his previous life. Yudhir thought, letting out a small sigh. The knight took his action as an even greater insult. You insolent boy, I will correct that bad habit of yours today. The knight aimed his sword at Yudhir, making Stryber, who was standing nearby, furrow his brows. Yudhir responded with a slight nod to his inquiring look, signaling not to worry. My beloved sword, Alran, had no mercy. Even if you lick the ground crying, bark like a dog, and beg, I will never forgive you. You will regret provoking me. That's a particularly detailed description. Perhaps he's a pervert of that taste. Yudhir distinctly remembered there being a rule in the Imperial Knight about never drawing one's sword without cause, yet for some reason the knights he encountered had no problem whipping out their swords and bragging about it, regardless of what was said. It was questionable whether they even realized that their conduct lacked the knightly or aristocratic dignity they so boasted about. Well, no matter, all I need to do is kill off their deception today. Shall we start with this one? Yudhir contemplated as he eyed the knight's sword. What's going on here? However, at that moment, the other knights seemed to sense the impending crisis and peered from behind. Yudhir noticed among them the ones who had previously ignored Kishir and felt relieved that he wouldn't have to go hunting for them. The impudent commoners who have been making a ruckus outside have dared to trespass into the training grounds, and among them, this one has shown particularly insolent behavior, so I thought it would be best to teach him a lesson before expelling him. The knight, who had behaved entirely different when dealing with Yudhir and the cavalry, reported loudly. He did that? The knights collectively glared at Yudhir. Instead of answering, Yudhir straightened Kishir's clothes, which he was still casually draping over his arm, an act that anyone could interpret as a clear sign of disregard. Huh? He must have 9 lives. Is he of a significant rank? It was so like them to judge everything based on rank or social status. Yudhir just tilted his head in response, swallowing a twisted smile. What's your name? It seems you'll need to be half dead before you regain your senses. You lot are the ones more likely to be half dead. However, Yudhir was once again prevented from acting as another group of knights made their appearance. Everyone's here. I clearly asked you to find out why the cavalry members suddenly came here and started wreaking havoc. The man approaching with an angry voice suddenly stopped his sentence. Kiol the Diarca stared at Yudhir with wavering eyes. Why are you here? To the agonizing silence, Yudhir could not respond with a significant smile. Kiol, who faced the smile, momentarily tried to step back but stopped himself just in time. Sir Diarca, what's the matter? Another knight standing next to Kiol asked him cautiously, sensing something was off. Kiol then regained his composure and turned his pale face. Nothing, nothing at all. But why is everyone crowding around one person? Listen, Sir Diarca, this man has. The knight who has first attempted to attack Yudhir came forward, excitingly opening his mouth like a fish out of water. With every word he uttered, the hostility towards Yudhir among the knights escalated, and Kiol's face turned increasingly pale. So, it was time to teach this man who dares to ignore the entire imperial knight a lesson. Judging from his fearlessness, it appears he holds a significant rank. I believe it would be appropriate to discipline him first, then expel the rest. How could you do what even I couldn't? Pardon? A knight who hadn't clearly heard Kiol's muttered question asked for clarification, but Kiol didn't repeat himself. With a quick intake of breath, Kiol looked at Yudhir, his face a mixture of unease and impatience. You. No, what in the world are you doing here?